This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Thursday, November 18th, 2024. On the show today, news, a new Disney survey on Jollywood Nights, plus listener questions. Then in our main segment, Jim gives us the history of Disney attraction overlays. Let's get started by bringing in the man kicked out of his high school theater group for observing that Beauty and the Beast is Hunchback of Notre Dame for furries, while Phantom of the Opera is Hunchback of Notre Dame for emos. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It's going well, Len. And again, knowing where you and Laurel make your home these days, I have to ask, did you ever get to see Love Never Dies, not the sequel to Phantom of the Opera that Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote?
No, I'm really into interactive stuff, not stage presentation these days. Have you seen it?
Well, no, because, let's see. They did it on the West End in 2010, and evidently, and what's interesting is that Mr. Weber's partner, the one who handled the lyrics this time, was Glenn Slater, who did the lyrics for Hercules for Disney and Home on the Range, and also worked on the stage version of The Little Mermaid. And it was an interesting animal of a show, Len. I mean, the gimmick was that it was set 10 years after Phantom, long-running show, and in this scenario, Christine had moved to the United States and had been invited to to perform in a brand new theater venue that had been built on Coney Island. And what she doesn't know is that the Phantom has also moved over to America and is now set up shop inside of this same theater down by the beach. And that's the thing, Len. It's like the Phantom down by the beach. I mean, I know that half a mask would give him some sun protection, but you got to assume the other side is constantly slathered with SPF 50.
His dermatologist is like, tell me again
how
this happened?
There we go. And by the way, one last little Disney-related tie here. Sierra Bogris, who played Ariel in the original Broadway company of The Little Mermaid, came back, actually played Christine in the West End production of this thing.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, toured the States in 2017 and never quite caught on like the first Phantom did, so...
We're going to have to do a show on people who were in Disney theater productions before they became, famous.
Oh, yeah. Isn't it Hugh Jackman who actually played Gaston in the Australian version of Beauty and the Beast, the Broadway show?
We'll save it for the show, Jim. Save it for the show.
Okay, cool.
All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to our subscribers on Patreon. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Dee Dee, Abby Kraut, Carrie Cormier, Mike Coate, Glenn Parker, and Frank Joseph, also known as Frunkus. Jim, these are the Haunted Mansion ghosts who interact with you at the end of the attraction. They say the idea of swapping heads and making guests disappear all started with a game of I've Got Your Nose, played with kids waiting in line, and they can only follow you home if you friend them on LinkedIn. True story.
And another reason I avoid LinkedIn at all costs. Okay, so...
On to the news. Folks, the news is sponsored by TouringPlans.com. Touring Plans helps you save time and money at theme parks like Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando. Check us out at TouringPlans.com. All right, Jim, every show should begin with a round of self-congratulations. On the October 14th show, we did some research based on an email from listener Dan Bodenstein, who pointed out that a trackless all-terrain ride system already existed for rides and would be perfect for the upcoming Cars attraction at the Magic Kingdom. And then at D23 Brazil last week, Disney announced that the Cars attraction would indeed be trackless and provided test video of how that might look. And Jim, I've included the video in the show notes here. So Disney also said the experience would include climbing mountain trails, dodging geysers, and splashing through mud holes. So it looks like we are going to retain some of the water elements from Rivers of America. What'd you make of that presentation?
again, genuinely intriguing that it's this ambitious and more to the point, new tech coming to a Disney park.
Right.
But again, work begins in earnest fairly soon, right? I mean, when does Big Thunder go down?
January. So
Yeah.
we're less than 2 months away from it. Yeah, and still an open question as to whether the railroad goes down with that, because they're going to have to move a lot of dirt.
Oh, God, yeah.
To get that done, and the railroad is kind of the thing in the way of the construction trucks. So, yeah, we'll see on that. But I suspect we will see some train downtime, or they're going to do a lot of work at night, one or the other.
All right, let's see what happens come early 2025. So,
all right, Jim. The other remarkable thing to come out of the D23 Brazil is that Disney's not yet given a location for the new Monsters, Inc. ride coming to Hollywood Studios. I still think it's replacing Muppets, because if it was any location other than Muppets, Disney would have already announced it.
Yeah.
So there has to be some other consideration for that shoe to drop, right?
Yeah. Everything we're hearing is it's more and more inevitable that is between the ease of building, locating the gravity building and everything associated with this attraction. But again, Disney, for some reason, just can't bring itself to turn the key on that announcement. So
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
I have heard that there. So in addition to Muppets Courtyard and Animation Courtyard, there's some interest in possibly expanding the footprint of Hollywood Studios south of Muppets Courtyard to make that area bigger too. So I don't know if it's that or what. I would expect that as soon as Disney files permits with the South Florida Water Management District, that we'll know instantly what happens there. That's when the announcement comes out. All right, speaking of D23 Brazil, Disney gave more details on the villains that'll be in Villains Land in the Magic Kingdom. I'll go through the list here real quick. The evil queen from Snow White, Maleficent, the Queen of Hearts, Gaston, Jafar, Captain Hook, Hades from Hercules, Lady Tremaine, Zima from Emperor's New Groove, Cruella de Vil, Mother Gothel, Chernabog, and last one, Ursula, who, Jim, I maintain is not actually an evil character. If she was a man and this was any other show, she would be just a shrewd business person. But anyway.
Okay, and if I might point out here, Len, if you go over that list fairly quickly, I mean, there are captains, there are queens, there are people who can wield magic, and then there's Lady Tremaine, who has a walking stick. And
exactly.
And Mother Gothel, who's passive-aggressive. Some of these things are not like the others. I mean, I don't know, is the Lady Tremaine line is going to be particularly long for the meet and greet? Just sort of like, look out, she's got a stick!
Yeah, like, what, is she going to tell guests to, like, scrub the pavement? Like,
there
what?
We go.
What's the evil characteristic there? Housework?
I don't know what to tell you.
I do think having a Zima from Emperor's New Groove is just going to be hysterical, just for the lines that you can have in there. There's so much potential there.
No, absolutely. Pull the lever, Crunk.
Exactly.
So
it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. And speaking of upcoming things, the Disney Cruise Line has christened the Disney Treasure. It was in New York for its christening. And I'm not saying, folks, that we snuck aboard the ship to look around, because Jim takes maritime security very seriously. Don't you, Jim?
Well, since that Devil's Island incident, yes.
One run-in with the East India Trading Company, and we're all chastened, right?
There we go. Okay.
Anyway, we've got in the show notes some photos from on board the ship. We'll start off with the one here, Jim. This is showing Aladdin and Jasmine in the lobby on the magic carpet. And that's a really good-looking lobby.
No, absolutely. And what's kind of intriguing, though, is when you know the previous setups for the Disney cruise ships and how they all have that statue in the lobby that is set up for photos. What's kind of interesting is Aladdin and Jasmine on their magic carpet raised up quite a bit. But at the same time, taking into consideration we live in the age of social media, perfect height to have, them looming in the background for your selfie.
It is. That's what I was thinking. It's also a little bit smaller, I think, in scale than the other stuff that we've seen. I always question this particular scene just from a dating perspective. So Aladdin tells Jasmine, I can show you the world. And yet they just fly around the city that they both live in. Like, what kind of over-promise, under-deliver is that? I don't know. I'm not saying it's a red flag. It's a beige flag. Anyway,
Okay.
some other interesting photos in there. The carpet also features an Aladdin theme.
Beautiful,
so we've got
by
an
the
image
way.
there.
Yep.
And then we've got an image of the entryway to the Coco restaurant with the altar of the characters in there, and also some other preview images from that. But Jim, the bars are the focus for me here. Take a look at the photo of the area for the Jungle Cruise bar. Look at that parrot lamp.
Oh, that is lovely. I mean, it's such a fun bend on the typical glass chandelier. No, that's great. On the other hand, sitting under that many birds would be a little concerning.
The thing I love about this, it's a lamp with stained glass parrots on it, and they're blue and green and white and yellow. So imagine if Tiffany had done a tiki bird chandelier. That's
Absolutely.
what we're looking at.
That's what we're looking at. And also, just off to the side here, please note the paddles with 55 and 71, opening year of Disneyland and opening year of Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World.
Fantastic, yeah. We've got some other artwork there of the Aladdin stuff. But also, Jim, I've included links to 4 videos from the Haunted Mansion bar on the treasure. We've got one with Madame Leota as a floating head in the mirror behind the bar. And is that a projection, or is that like a Pepper's Ghost effect? How are they doing that?
I am not entirely sure. I mean, again, you only just shared these images out ahead of us at recording. But the interesting thing is it's a moving image.
Yeah.
For my money, in order to pull off the effect, there would have to be a projection system inside the mirror discreetly to do this.
That's what I think. That's what I think too. Yeah. Also, there are some really impressive portraits in the portrait gallery that end up singing, and there are some effects in there. So I've got a video of 2 portraits singing different versions of Grim Grinning Ghosts, and then one showing a portrait gallery of like aging effect on the image. But it all looks really impressive, Jim. I looked at this and I said, Imagineering looked at what they did on the Wish, especially with the Star Wars bar, and then just went even bigger on it.
Yeah, and that's a smart lesson to have learned, because I wish that Star Wars bar were more impressive than it is.
Right, and I think they got the feedback of that, and then just decided to turn it up to 11. My big concern here, Jim, is people are going to see this stuff on the Disney Treasure, and it's going to be so popular, you and I are never going to be able to book a cabin.
Yeah, Len, I worry that the only way we're going to get on this boat is if we're rescued at sea.
We'll be floating off a Port Canaveral. We'll be like waving off the Coast Guard, saying, "No, we're fine."
There we go. It just so seriously, anybody there know a place where we could get a leaky catamaran? Because that's what they seem to be responding to.
It might be our best option here.
There we go.
All right, on to surveys. Our friend Matt Pedalicio set a new Jollywood Nights survey from Disney. Remember, this just started last week. So a couple of interesting questions here, Jim. The first one is Disney's asking an intent to visit question like this. Which statement below best describes your primary reason for visiting Disney Jollywood Nights? I visited because of the theme of the party, including unique entertainment. I visited because I wanted to attend a special event at Hollywood Studios, regardless of theme. Or I visited because special events are less crowded than a regular day, and it's easier for me to see and do everything I want. So that's really sort of narrowing down not only why you came, but how to market this going forward.
I guess my one question with the third question there is, that would be, you'd have to really be a Disney World vet to know that. I mean, one of the advantages of, yes, it's pricey to buy a ticket to an after-hours hard ticket event, but the fact that you have almost a free run of the place because so many people are paying attention to the entertainment. That's sort of a vet question.
And I'm wondering if you pick that, right, I visited because special events are less crowded, if Disney would interpret that as the special event cannibalizing day ticket sales.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. So then that's not incremental revenue. That's just left pocket to right pocket money.
Got it.
There was also specific questions on entertainment. So what did you like most about Jollywood Nights? And then there's a converse question that asks what you like least. But specialty merch, fireworks, rides, attractions, photo ops, park decor, things like that. There was and then a follow-up question. Which of the following entertainment offerings did you experience at Jollywood Nights? So the holidays in Hollywood, the What's This? Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, the Jingle Bell, Jingle Bam fireworks, and then the Glisten skating show in center stage, and a few other things there too. And I think that's interesting because it allows them to focus on things that actually worked, right? Things that people enjoyed.
Oh, no doubt. But the Pixar disco? There's a Pixar disco?
Completely missed that in the entertainment. I wonder if this is like a thing too where they're going to start publicizing different events more.
Okay.
There's an interesting question about how many times you experienced each of the attractions in the park. So, for example, for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, there was a little drop box that asked, how many times you saw that and so on. And this is where I'm trying to think of going back to that question about, I was there to experience rides. Is it a question of we need to add more rides, or are there things that people aren't visiting that we don't need to run?
Okay. Interesting operational question there.
All right. Then there were two questions, and this is kind of a visual thing, so refer to the show notes, folks. But it says, do you recall seeing this character, Ollie, during your visit to Jollywood Nights? And he's a gingerbread man dressed up in a suit jacket. And it says, please indicate the extent to which you agree or disagree with the following statements about Ollie. Special editions like Ollie are a big part of what makes Disney Jollywood Nights a unique event, and I would be interested in purchasing Ollie merch. And Jim, I bring this up because I know the Disney survey team listens to this show. Guys and gals, you have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever by inventing a character that doesn't exist and asking guests if they recall seeing it. Okay? I know you can do it. I know you're creative enough. I'm just saying. It would be fantastic.
It's one of these things where it's like, face it, they would love for this event, for this Ollie to be Orange Bird or Figment.
Oh, yeah. Or I'm blanking on the name. The character from Japan.
Duffy.
Duffy, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I say this as a diabetic. Duffy the gingerbread man, maybe.
Yeah, you would eat that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The last question that on the survey that looked interesting to me was one on whether offering Jollywood Nights was expanding or cannibalizing sales. So it's this. Although you may have already mentioned it, have you attended or do you plan to attend Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party at the Magic Kingdom this holiday season? So they know you've already been to Jollywood Nights. The question is now whether you're going to all the parties or just this one. So it's a yes, no, I don't know question.
Now, speaking of which, and just a quick nod to our friends over at WDW Magic, did you see they posted a video of the Christmas parade with its new music mix?
I saw that it was posted, but I haven't watched it yet. Is it? What's interesting about it?
Well, it seems that Disney decided that, that licensing music from other people outside is so expensive. Why don't we just stick with our stuff? So you get instead of walking into Wonderland or that sort of thing, you're getting things like From All of Us to All of You. And don't get me wrong, again, Josh Gad, friend of the show, the Happy Silly This Time of Year song that he does from the Olaf's Frozen holiday special. That's great, but it's interesting. It seems to be just Disney owned IP, their music for this, or for that matter, if it happens to be in the public domain, it's like, perfect, that's great. The Holly and the Ivy, because again, we're all tapping our toes to the Holly and the Ivy. So
they've always had a deep admiration for music in the public domain, Jim.
There we go.
All right, I'll have to watch that video.
Okay.
On to listener questions. Here's a follow-up question from Greg Landry on, Jim, your recently concluded history of El Rio del Tiempo. And Greg writes in with this. He says, I've really been enjoying the history of the Mexico Pavilion ride. Jim explained that the space used for the ride was not the intended space and that there was a plan to build a much larger attraction to house the ride. So what was that space used for the ride today originally intended for? That's a lot of space, but I can't imagine what the Imagineers may have had in mind for it. So, so Jim, and my note here is this, un final glorioso de tres horas in esta economía?
Okay.
What was going to go in that space, Jim?
Well, just it sort of expanded. I mean, for example, entering the Mayan temple, the piece that was in the Yucatan that covered the pre-Columbian, that sort of thing. I mean, much bigger show scenes would have featured some animatronics in addition to the film elements. I mean, that's the thing. It really is the Reader's Digest version of what the Imagineers originally intended in 79, 80. But again, I don't want to appear as a whiny baby man here, but the reality is we actually got this boat ride. Whereas if we talk about what happened in Germany, I mean, they built where the entrance to the river ride was supposed to go, and then never actually built the ride itself. So we at least got one. So just be happy with what we got.
I would love to do a tour of the back areas of the Germany Pavilion just to see how far they got with the ride. Like, is that just a big open space?
It's interesting you say that because I was back there. This would have been 94, 95. I had a friend who worked in a trailer back there. What was fascinating, Len, is they had poured the cement slab for where the Rhine attraction was supposed to go. And I mean, I would go to visit my friend in the trailer and just sort of look out. It's like, okay, so that's how big the footprint was supposed to be for the ride. They just never went forward with putting up the structural steel and then enclosing the building.
Wow. Still love to see it. All right. Next question is from Samantha S., who says, is there any talk of Dinoland closing merchandise being available, kind of like Ellen's Energy Adventure and the Great Movie Ride Farewell merchandise? And Jim, this reminded me of a similar question from Leslie Archambault, asking about props from Disneyland when it closed. So a couple of quick things about Dinoland. Jim, I did a blog post this week on touringplans.com that looked at Disney's construction permits filed with the South Florida Water Management District, and I figured out a bunch of stuff about Tropical Americas that Disney hasn't yet announced. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay. Also, Jim, did you know that capybaras, which are native to tropical Americas, were also native to Florida around 100,000 years ago?
Ooh, okay. They're effectively giant guinea pigs, aren't they?
They're adorable. I don't think Disney's going to do animal exhibits in tropical Americas because that's not what they're sort of tending to. But if they do, that would be a nice tie-in between Dinoland and this.
I agree. How cool. Yeah, let's do that.
Anyway, I'm not sure if we're going to get to merch, Stephanie, in the next few months. That might be something Disney does in like 5 or 10 years because they tend to do nostalgia stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, think about it. In fact, Nancy still very proudly wears her "That's a Wrap" Great Movie Ride. That's almost her designated sleep shirt these days. But
I think Etsy will have them because
well, there we go. What am I saying? Yeah. Of course.
The best Etsy shirt I've seen recently is the one that says "I still call it MGM Studios."
Me too.
Anyway,
Me too.
Yeah, no, right?
Yeah. Okay.
As for Dinoland USA props, I'm sure a lot of that is going to end up either at auction or Cast Connection. I'm not sure Disney's going to consider something like those things as worth storing in an archive. So a lot of the stuff is going to end up getting taken out by whatever company is hired to come in and demolish the infrastructure. And those folks will ensure that some of that stuff finds its way to the secondary market. And a lot of these in-park items end up at Van Eaton Galleries. So that's where I would start asking if you're looking for in-park used Dinoland stuff. Jim, you and I have interacted with Mike Van Eaton a couple of times, and he's a great guy, right?
Oh, yeah. And more to the point, I love that typically out ahead of their auctions, they do the amazing walkthrough of what's about to go for bid.
Yeah, catalogs and everything. Yeah, they're really, really good.
If you're ever out in California, the week or so before they actually hold an auction, go check out their facility. It's amazing.
Yeah, and definitely sign up for their notifications around auctions. They do really, really good presentations of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so also if you email Mike and say what you're looking at something specifically, I'm sure he will send you a note if he's got available. And if you do email Mike, tell him we referred you, and you should also say, Len and Jim, remember your willingness to help the United States in its time of need. And don't ask what that means because, Jim, this is one of those stories that we can't tell till everyone's dead.
Yeah.
Right? But you know the story I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely. Okay. Do not touch the third rail, Len. That's all I'm saying.
Anyway, Mike's a great guy, and we'll tell that story one day. All right.
Cool.
On to the next email from Greg Wazinski. Who says, I'm a longtime listener, and I was pleasantly surprised to hear that Len is a big fan of Shoresy. Being a proud Canadian, I would be remiss if I did not recommend the show that brought us that character, Letterkenny. Lots of seasons and specials, great writing, and a little bit of Shoresy. Pitter-patter, Len. All right, Greg, thank you so much. I just started season 6 of Letterkenny, and I learned, Jim, the actor K. Trevor Wilson, who played Squirrely Dan on Letterkenny, is a big Disney Parks fan.
Oh.
And actually got engaged at the boardwalk, I think. So Jim, our goal now should be to have K. Trevor on the show. I think it'd be great. Yeah. Also, Jim, Canada's not that big of a country, so one of our listeners has to know someone who knows K. Trevor.
I just want to stress here, Canada is not a big country population-wise.
Population-wise, exactly. It's a small network, yeah.
Okay, but by the way, Nancy, by proxy, is also a Letterkenny fan because her favorite Hallmark hunk, Tyler Hines, has also done an appearance on that show. So
there you go.
I kind of backed into Letterkenny because of that.
Oh, that's right.
So,
it's Hallmark holiday season for you. Yeah, how's that going for you?
Okay. One event down, Len. In fact, it's interesting. We were just talking about the Disney Treasure because Nancy just got off the inaugural Hallmark cruise. And again, what was interesting thing, using the Disney Cruise Line yardstick against this initial Hallmark event. And it's just sort of like, Hallmark really needs to go talk to the folks at Disney in regards to its boats and handling events, and that's all I'm going to say. But again, it was the first.
Did they visit small towns in Canada?
Well, unless NASA is relocated, I don't think so. No. But
No. This is okay. So. Okay. The Hallmark Holiday Cruise has to visit small New England towns and small Canadian towns where big city. So first of all, you have to get on it in New York City. So big city people visit small towns like Chicoutimi and fall in love with, the cupcake baker there or something.
You have clearly watched a few of these films. So, all right. So,
a lot of plaid.
There we go.
We should do our own. We should organize this. Really, we should.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, folks. When we come back, Jim gives us the history of Disney attraction overlays. We'll be right back.
What's up, guys? It's the champ, Sean O'Malley, here to talk to you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win real money while watching football. Run your game on Prize Picks.
Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code SPOTIFY. That's code SPOTIFY on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be. To be.
And we're back. All right, Jim, Disney attraction overlays, and I believe you've thematically link this into the holidays.
Well, yeah. In fact, Len, it was 40 years ago this week that the Country Bear Christmas Show debuted at Disneyland Park out in Anaheim. Now, mind you, it was originally announced as opening on November 17th of 1984, but due to some fairly sizable seismic events that were happening at Walt Disney Productions around the same window of time. I mean, for example, September 22nd, Disney's board of directors voted to make Michael Eisner the new CEO and Frank Wells the new president and chief operating officer of Disney. And then here's the interesting part, Len. November 8th and 9th, Frank and Michael travel as a unit down to Anaheim for the very first time. And first, they speak to 2,000 Disneyland cast members who have, taken seats in the Tomorrowland stage and introduced themselves as the new heads of the company. And then they spend the next day and a half with Disneyland managers where, as part of their then ongoing familiarization of every single division of the Walt Disney Company, they go on every ride at Disneyland.
Wow.
Yeah, because again, they're new on the job. And since reprogramming the old Country Bear Jamboree show so that it could then present a new seasonal show was considered a really big deal back then. Because again, it was touted as the Disney difference, that nobody else in the theme park business could have pulled this off at that time. So, of course, Eisner and Wells, they hike them back to Bear Country. They take them into the Country Bear Playhouse and they show them the Christmas show. And because they now have to get ready for that, the team that's doing the load-in for the Christmas show, it throws off the schedule. So instead of opening Saturday, November 17th, which would have been the Saturday before Thanksgiving in '84, the actual opening of the Country Bear Christmas show gets pushed back to Friday, November 23rd, which is the day after Thanksgiving.
One extra round of polish never hurt a show,
No. Especially when here are the new bosses, impress them. So, but given that situation, Len, getting a new seasonal show loaded into the park, it got off to a somewhat stressful start. But then again, the whole idea of doing a seasonal overlay of Country Bear Jamboree at the Disney park was born out of equally stressful circumstances. And to explain that part of the story, we now have to jump backwards some 18 months to the late winter, early spring of 1983.
Oh, okay. All right, I know where you're going here. Go ahead. All right.
Yeah, so the mood inside of 1401 Flower Street, extremely glum. So just to sort of lay down the circumstances here, folks, it's 6 months after Phase 1 of Epcot has opened, and we're now a month or so out from when Tokyo Disneyland will officially open on April 15th, 1983. And then just 6 weeks after that, Len, Phase 1 of the new Fantasyland project at Disneyland Park would open May 26, 1983. And you'd think...
A cause for celebration all the way around, Jim, right?
Yeah, not so much. Okay.
It's like being able to watch the guillotines get pulled into the town square in Paris, right?
There we go.
You just know what's going to happen next.
Well, but that's the interesting thing. You've nailed it in one. Again, all these people at Imagineering who've worked on these three huge projects back to back to back. It's not a time of celebration. It's a very grim and scary time in Imagineering because, especially for the folks who had worked it way back in the late '60s, early 1970s when Project Florida was underway, and again, companies turning 40 square miles of swamp in Florida into a vacation kingdom. These guys knew that the axe was about to fall, and that because in order to pull off Epcot Center, Tokyo Disneyland, and again, Anaheim's version of New Fantasyland, the Imagineering the head count, Len, was up to 2,000 employees. All right.
And that's a lot. That's a lot for Imagineering.
Oh, no, totally. And in fact, the grim reality was what was about to happen is that the company was going to shed 1,600 of those people with the notion of get
80%.
Yeah, I mean, get Imagineering down to a manageable headcount of just 400 people.
It's funny you mentioned this, Jim, because this lesson did not go unlearned by Imagineering. And in fact, you and I have talked about this. I don't think we said it on the show, but off air, that one of the reasons why Imagineering takes so long with projects now is because nobody wants their project to end during a downturn, a recession, because they'll be laid off. So
Absolutely.
projects go on, and everyone finds a reason to be on everyone else's project. So things like Tron, take 6 years and multi-millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to deliver because of things like this.
No, absolutely. It's this culture that, a lot of ways, a lot of foot dragging, so to speak. But anyway, to jump back now to 83, one of the folks who was facing this very grim reality, again in the late winter, early spring of 83, was David Feiton. He was an animator who had been hired by Disney straight out of CalArts in the late 70s, and then was put to work on the animated feature Disney was going to put out in July of 81, The Fox and the Hound. But,
fantastic movie.
Yep. But while he's working in Burbank, he hears that over at WED, the Imagineers are desperate for folks to help with the programming of the new animatronic figures that, again, are being built for Epcot and Tokyo Disney and New Fantasyland. And Feiton, who dabbled in computers, thought, well, I might like to try my hand at that. So he puts in for a transfer from Walt Disney Feature Animation over to Imagineering, and then has a ball working with animatronic figures. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Now, I actually got to talk personally with Feiton about this. It turns out Davy, by the way, Len, that's his real name, Davy Crockett Feiton.
Wow.
His mom and dad evidently were big fans of the Disneyland TV series back in the 1950s, and there you go.
Okay.
All right. And also it turns out that Davy was and still is a friend of my ex, Michelle Valladolid, by the way, co-host of the Manufacturing the Magic show we host over here at Jim Hill Media. It's the one we do. She does with her husband, Noah Valladolid, that looks back on the history of themed entertainment. But anyway, Davey and I actually got to talk at San Diego Comic-Con. This would have been in the 2010s. And I asked him, how did traditional hand animation drawing compared to programming animatronic figures? And Mr. Feiton, who at this point was working for Rhythm and Hues, which was one of the top computer animation houses in the day, he said he actually preferred working with audio animatronics, Len, because of the immediate gratification aspect. I mean,
you change a cam, you change a disc, you change a and you can actually see it happen right then.
No, that's it exactly. Whereas if you're doing hand-drawn animation, I mean, you can flip the pages in front of yourself, but you don't actually get to see if you got the timing right or the performance right until somebody puts those things down in front of a camera, and then you go in for a sweatbox session.
I mean, as a programmer, I understand the immediate gratification of seeing something run. So I totally understand. Yeah.
So anyway, Feiton had come to love working with audio animatronics, but given the massive layoff that was looming, and also, let's be honest here, given Davy's lack of seniority at Imagineering, he knew that he would soon be out of a job unless he either found a way, in fact, hearkening back to just what you were just saying, found a way to attach himself to a pending project or Imagineering, or better, invented a new job for himself at Imagineering.
That's better.
Yeah. So Feiton then begins thinking about taking a pre-existing show at the Disney parks and doing a seasonal overlay, something that would allow Imagineering, without spending the tens of millions that were typically necessary to first develop and then construct a new attraction for the parks, to avoid that, but still be able to roll out a new show for the parks. And so,
wait, so this show idea came from Imagineering?
Yes, and again,
love it.
But more to the point, it's a lifeboat. I'm gonna build a lifeboat, and so it's this idea and more to the point, why go with Country Bear? Well, out in California, this audio animatronic show is presented at the Country Bear Playhouse rather than Walt Disney World's Grizzly Hall. And Davy's thinking was, well, look, at your typical playhouse, yes, you'd have a resident company of players, but occasionally you do a different show. So this is what he begins noodling on. Country Bear Country Jamboree has been playing in Anaheim since March of '72, and the Bears, not to mention Disneyland visitors, have to be bored at doing the same show over and over again.
Exactly.
Okay, so So Fighton gets together with Michael Sprout, who's another newish Imagineer, who's also staring down the barrel of these layoffs at WED. And they work up a bunch of sketches for a number of different ideas for seasonal overlays at Country Bear. And by the way, Len, not just the Christmas show. They put together some images for a Halloween version, a Valentine's version, a 4th of July version.
Did you say Arbor Day? Yes,
there
Arbor Day.
There
Bears love trees. Exactly.
All right, and they pull in some favors, and they get in front of Marty Sklar, who at that time is the executive vice president in charge of development at Walt Disney Imagineering. And Marty, right from the get-go, loves this seasonal overlay idea.
I mean, it's got to appeal to executives, right? A, you're not building brand new infrastructure. B, it gives locals in Disneyland a new reason to visit. C, to your point, you can roll this out everywhere. So this is, in fact, you got to believe that these kinds of conversations have been happening over the past couple of years for Walt Disney World, because they've got no new attractions coming until 2027. So overlays, rethemings, things like that have to be top of mind.
No, absolutely. And, but that's the thing. At this point, you've kind of exhausted your low-hanging fruit. But anyway, so Marty, right from the get-go, loves this idea. And given that Christmas, by this point anyway, has become such a big draw with locals out in Southern California, well, this is the one that Marty goes, okay, that one. We'll use this as our proof of concept. So he tells Dave.
Would they have like 2 months to do this?
Well, now that's the interesting thing. You bring up, remember, this is 83. And it's and they're being realistic because it's like, this has to be affordable, so you have to see, you have to be a small team. In fact, the folks basically driving the bus on this, 3 people. There was Davey, there was again Michael Sprout, and then we'll get to George's contribution in the next installment of the series. But George Wilkins, who worked
he recently passed away. We have to do a show on him. I was just going to bring this up. Got to do a show on it. Okay, so what? So this is like May, and they have until what, like October?
Well, now I want to say that again, they had to go around. Marty okayed the idea, but then Marty actually had to go and get some money for this, and this was the problem. I mean, you were going to have to make new costumes for the figures. You were going to have a new musical score written. You were going to have to bring voice actors in. The hard reality, Len, is even after they got their green light, and this took till the fall of 83, they then had a year's worth of hard work ahead of them before this thing opened in the fall of 84. And remember, this is also, as Davey and Michael and George are working on this is in the middle of the green mail of the Walt Disney Company. So the whole notion is I think Davey was talking about, it sort of felt like you're in your stateroom on the Titanic working on something.
You've heard some crunching noises, but right. you really got to get this work done.
Keep working on it, boys. I'm sure we'll be fine.
So they had a year to work on this, which, Jim, not for nothing, is a year of gainful employment.
Oh, no, that's it exactly. I mean, that's it. But again, Marty tells Davey and Michael, look, go off and develop the show. I'll get the money. But by the way, you don't have a lot of money. You're not going to have a lot of time. But if you can do this, who knows what this will lead to. And on next week's show, we're going to talk about just that, how on the heels of the success of this seasonal overlay, Country Bear Christmas Show kicks open the door for so much of the stuff we love today. The Small World holiday, the Haunted Mansion holiday, not to forget, of course, Jingle Cruise.
Yeah, fantastic. I didn't know that this all started with an Imagineering idea. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and more to the point, a really sweaty, desperate Imagineer who was trying to avoid a layoff.
Pressure clarifies the mind, Jim.
There we go.
Wow. All right. Can't wait for next week's show. This is going to be great.
Cool.
All right, folks. That's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where we're posting exclusive shows every week. We're on to season 2 of Disney Unpacked, and we're talking about the never-built Epcot Africa Pavilion. On next week's show, we're going to have Christina Harrison on to talk about all the good food at Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party and Jollywood Nights, and then Jim continues the history of Disney attraction overlays. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com, and more of me, Len at touringplans.com. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, who'll be performing as their stage names Mabel Serp and Bernie Sanders Mittens on Saturday, January 18th at the 2025 Vermont Burlesque Festival at the Hotel Champlain, that's on Battery Street, in beautiful downtown Burlington, Vermont. While Eric and David are doing that, please go into iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We'll see you on the next show.